Please once give rise to bodhicitta and listen with bodhicitta. So what we are discussing today is, well, we reach this line like Ananda, Angulimala, Darshaka and Udayana on page 203. So the stories. Stories of these figures. Okay, so I thought to tell these stories of these different figures, but actually it seems like we just don't have time. Just the manjula offerings themselves have taken up so much time already, so we'll just continue with the text. Maybe there'll be time to tell these stories another day. We read in the Sutra of the teaching of the four powers, so now we're discussing the actual method for purifying negative actions. Maitreya, if a bodhisattva possesses four powers, well, what are they? The power of the support, the power of regret, the power of action as an antidote, and the power of restoration or resolution. These are the four powers. All the negative deeds one has gathered, if one has these four powers, all the negative deeds one's gathered, they'll be completely overwhelmed. So the negative deeds or karmas, all the different kinds, the propelling, the completing, and so on and so forth. All of these karmas will be purified. These different types of karma that we were discussed in the reflection on karmic cause and effect, and discussed in much more detailed discussions which are found in texts like the Treasury of Abhidhamma, the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras, and so on. Karma created by deeds that were performed but not intended, intended but not performed, and so on and so forth. The explanation of karma, the different aspects and types of karma, is vast and extensive. In any case, all of these different karmas we have performed, we've accumulated over time, will be completely overwhelmed, purified, overcome by the four powers. What are these four? They are regret, feeling regret, remorse for what we've done. So regret means a kind of disgust with what you've done. And in the words of my perfect teacher, Patramashi illustrates this with the example of someone who has a liver disease and feels very nauseous, then being faced with a very greasy meal, like a meal swimming in butter. That just the sight of that would make them feel nauseous and disgusted, right? So the regret we're speaking about here is this kind of like visceral regret. You just feel nauseated at the thought of the negative things you've done. A deep felt regret. Then action as an antidote. So the antidote, the remedy, that which remedies an illness, for instance, a specific illness which heals a specific illness. So action as an antidote, to engage in the practice of confession and so on as the direct antidote for one's negative karma. Then we have the power of restoration, which is to make the commitment and feel determined to not repeat one's mistakes. And then the power of the support. The Buddhas, the Gurus, Bodhisattvas. Also a place, a sacred site such as Bodh Gaya, which has been blessed by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and great Gurus. A place like Sopema, Rawalsa Lake in India. These are also qualify as supports, the power of support. So here the power of our support is Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva is taken as the power of the support. So all negative actions, those that we are aware of, unaware of, those that we've done wittingly, unwittingly, as mentioned in the Yeshu Kunchok Confession. This is the power of regret, to regret every negative action one has done, even those one has done unwittingly. Then to take action as the result. The actual meditation and recitation of, in this case, that means the actual recitation and meditation of Vajrasattva, visualizing Vajrasattva of your head, the seed syllables surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra in his heart center, spinning around as you recite the mantra, filling his body with amrita that then flows out of him and pours down and enters you through the crown of your head, filling your entire body, all of your subtle channels and chakras. Descending into one's body, flooding all of one's subtle channels and chakras, and washing them completely clean. Even the tiniest pore in our body is washed completely clear. Like this then flows out of us. So it flows from the top of our head down to the tips of our toes, and washes all of our obscurations and misdeeds out of us. They exit us in the form of blood and pus and sooty water and so on. So all illnesses enter us in the form of blood and pus. Like in me, I have diabetes or whatever illness you might have. That exits you in the form of pus and blood. All negative interferences, forces, spirits and so on affecting you exit you in the form of insects, scorpions and so on. And all of your misdeeds and obscurations exit you in the form of sooty water, dirty water. Like if you have a dirty ditch, and then heavy rain falls and the ditch fills up with water, and all of that dirt and dust is flushed away, right? So this way, your whole body is washed clean by this Amrita, and all of your misdeeds and obscurations and so on, they flow out of you. All of your misdeeds, your negative karmas, obscurations are completely clean, completely flushed out of you, completely pure. So now you imagine you continue reciting. So you visualize all of this while you're visualizing Vajrasattva above your head and reciting his mantra, right? And now you are completely clean, purified, and you continue reciting the mantra while focusing on maintaining this sense of being purified and washed clean. All the time reciting the mantra. And to add in a detail, so at the beginning of the session when you start reciting the mantra, you visualize Vajrasattva above your head, and first of all from the syllable Hom in his heart center that's surrounded by the 100 syllables, as you're reciting the mantra, you visualize light rays radiating out into all directions, so making offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, making pleasing offerings, and then gathering back with all of the blessings of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, which dissolve into the heart of Vajrasattva, and then the stream of nectar begins to flow, filling Vajrasattva up, overflowing and dissolving into you as we described. So, in short, this is the second of the four powers, action as an antidote. And then we have the third power, the power of restoration, which is the commitment, the determination to not repeat one's mistakes. Even at the cost of my life, I will not perform non-virtue. Even at the cost of my life, I will not obscure myself. That commitment. So the power of restoration also refers to, so having applied the antidote, and purified yourself of all your misdeeds and obscurations by having your body flooded with Vajrasattva's nectar and all of those misdeeds washed out of you. Then you become completely clear, just like a pure crystal vase, right? So this is also a part of the power of restoration. And accompanying that, now that you are pure and clean, you think, I will never again make the same mistakes. I will never sully or obscure myself. And then we have the power of support, which in this context is Vajrasattva himself. So the support that we taking the support of Vajrasattva, say, Buddha Vajrasattva, who embodies all the 19 ones, or another sacred support, such as the self-manifest stupas of awakening, the 3 stupas we have here in Nepal, Nama Buddha, Bodhana Stupa, and Swayambha Stupa, or another sacred site that's been blessed by the Buddhas and Gurus. These also are sacred supports, and if we do practice in the presence of these sacred supports, then that practice will be even more powerful purification, more powerful accumulation of merit. So this is to say that the supports we take for our practice make a difference. They intensify the power of our practice. So like when we do sadhanas, we have the jinbib, the shower of blessings, part of the sadhana. Or we invoke a rain of blessings from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can be invoked and they can descend and dissolve into a place, dissolve into objects, and consecrate those things, make them sacred. And when blessings really enter a place or enter a site, soak into that site, then amazing occurrences like self-emanated deities, like the self-emanated Tara at Yangdeshe, or there are many self-emanated images of the Buddhas. Yangdeshe is just one example, or self-emanated syllables, mantras you find in the environment. So these see there's the result of those sites being blessed by so many accomplished masters, by so many Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So there was a practitioner in the past, Bhadraramshi's contemporary, who was a layperson, not learned or anything, but as for their Dharma practice, they just practiced simply reciting the Mani mantra, and they even hunted. They did practice, but at the same time they continued hunting deer and so on. So, from appearances, they were a very ordinary layperson, but when they died, they stayed in meditation, rainbows appeared, really great signs of accomplishment appeared. So it seemed this man, this old man, seemingly ordinary old man, was actually very accomplished. And where he passed away, where he had lived, where he passed away, there on a boulder, the face of a boulder, appeared the Mani mantra. Self-emanated, so unmade, unfabricated Mani mantra, Mani syllables just appeared on the face of the rock. So these sorts of things happen. And it's said that there are stories of people hearing the Mani mantra resounding from these syllables, and likewise in other places you find self-emanated syllables of the Vajraguru mantra, which again is said to be self-resounding. Personally, when I went to see this site, I didn't hear any Mani mantra. Maybe that's because I'm obscured by my own negative karma. But it seems from what you hear that those with pure karma actually hear the sound of the Mani mantra when in the presence of these self-emanated syllables. So anyway, I really need to move on with the text we have to get through. Still have many pages to get through. to finish our quota for today, and we need to finish kind of on time or a bit earlier because we need to do puja day, talk offering for Dakini day. Anyway, when they're all present, when these 4 powers are all present, even a heap of negative actions as high as Mount Meru will be purified by parting from them genuinely once. So actually, maybe shouldn't really say these things in the presence of lay students. Then they might get the wrong idea and think that, oh, it's so easy to purify all our non-virtue. It's so easy, no problem. But when it says here, they will be purified by parting from them, by confessing them genuinely once, this refers to someone, the power of practice, the power of confession by an accomplished practitioner who's mastered the generation and completion stages, who has pure samaya and so on, and with perfect concentration implies these 4 pyres and confesses their non-virtues, then that kind of practitioner can practice in such a way that mountains of negative karma can be purified in an instant. So the problem is if you don't know really if one's not aware of like the context here and what's meant, by this and by other statements like in Dzogchen text we find statements like, by recognizing Ripa you gain enlightenment in an instance. The problem is if you don't understand what's involved, what's meant by that, you can end up thinking, I can just recite a few money mantras and then go back to bed. In one of Longchenpa's texts, he talks about this statement, attaining enlightenment in a single instance by recognizing the nature of mind. So I'm saying this, I'm speaking now more specifically to the scholars here. In one of Longchenpa's texts, the With-filling treasury, or maybe it's the Trilogy of the Nature of Mind, Longchenpa explains what's meant by this, how this is possible, that just a moment of recognition can purify eons of non-virtue, because this is taught in many tantric scriptures, right? He gives the example of a cave a north-facing cave that might have been shrouded in darkness for eons and eons. And then he says, okay, that cave has been shrouded in darkness for eons and eons. But if you take a lamp in there, light the lamp, then it doesn't matter that the cave has been in darkness for so many eons. In a single second, just by virtue of lighting the lamp, all that darkness will be dispelled. There'll be no more darkness in that cave. So he gives this as an example to illustrate the fact that in spite of our endless delusion and eons of non-virtue, by the virtue of recognizing the nature of mind, the intrinsic nature, that illumination, that wisdom, the light of that wisdom, that recognition, has the force to eliminate, clear away all obscurations, the darkness of obscurations, just like the lamp in the cave. But as it's taught in those, so that's a very kind of skillful, profound example actually to illustrate what's meant. But in any case, which I said before, just initial moment of recognition of the nature of mind is very powerful, purification, but it's not enough just to recognize once, right? As the Great Perfection teachings make very clear, first of all, one must recognize directly the nature of mind. That's the first step, but that is not the end of the process. You then have to train persistently to perfect the strength of your recognition, and then finally reach the point where you've gained perfect stability. That's perfect enlightenment or perfect constant realization. So the power of the support. Well, the 3 jewels, the 3 roots, and so on are certainly the best support in general. Here, the particular support is teacher Vajrasattva. On the absolute level, he is the great embodiment of the infinite adornments of all the Buddhas of past, present, and future. In Jushu Rinpoche's lineage supplication for his Vajrasattva practice, he explains so beautifully. He writes so beautifully. Vajrasattva is the embodiment of all Buddhas. And I think the rest of the lines, to loosely translate, is that he is the embodiment of all Buddhas, as many as there are, and the source of all other emanations. He's the source of all emanations and embodies all emanations. And these are some lines from Dujuna Rinpoche's linear supplication for the Vajrasattva practice. So there are different ways to visualize the gurus. There's one way to visualize a great mass of deities or gurus and lineage masters gathered all together like a market gathering. And there's a way to visualize them one above the other in kind of tiers. And then there's a way to visualize just a single figure, understanding that that single figure embodies all others. This is the visualization style of the wish-fulfilling jewel. So that's what we're visualizing here. A single figure. We're visualizing just a single figure, glorious Vajrasattva, with the knowledge that he embodies all, as it says here. He's the great embodiment of all the Buddhas of past, present and future. He's the embodiment of Gurus, Yidams, Dakinis, Dharma protectors of all enlightened beings, all emanations. And again, Dujuna Rinpoche describes this principle, the fact that Guru Vajrasattva embodies all Buddha families, all three roots, all enlightened beings, all enlightened forms. He describes this so beautifully in the liturgy for the daily practice of Vajrasattva. On the relative level, when he first aroused the Supreme Bodhicitta, he made the following prayer: simply from hearing my name, may beings who have committed crimes with immediate retribution, and those who would fall into the great diamond hell as a result of their commitments becoming deteriorated, may they be immediately purified. So on the relative level, Vajrasattva became who he is. He gained this power of purification, became a support for purification as a result of first arousing a Supreme Bodhicitta and then making the following prayer, this following powerful aspiration. So on a relative level, the similar things are said about, for instance, Noble Tara, who prayed to be able to protect beings from certain dangers, and so on. So on the relative level, the different Buddhas and deities' special qualities come from the aspirations they made while training on the path, when they were still practitioners, before being enlightened. So Vajrasattva made this aspiration: simply from hearing my name, may beings be immediately purified of their negative actions and obscurations. So what's the difference between the hell of ultimate torment and what we call Great Diamond Hell or Vajra Hell? So Vajra means invisible, non-dual, indestructible. So what is meant then by Vajra in the sense of Vajra Hell? Well, since Vajra means invincible, unshakable, indestructible, then Vajra Hell basically is referring to a hell that is inescapable and is endless. And this is specifically the state of hell that Vajrayana practitioners will fall into. So it is called Vajra Hell for these reasons. Those who practice into the Vajrayana and they break their sacred commitments, their samaya. Or they break their commitments in whatever way, they fall into this hell of ultimate torment, or into Vajra Hell. So anyway, there is this question often, what is the difference between the hell of ultimate torment and Vajra hell, which is a specific hell we find mention of in Vajrayana contexts, and some of the differences between these two and the reason why this hell is called Vajra hell are explained by as well in the ways I just explained, at least that's from what I understood and remember. So you can look into this issue more for more clarification. The strength of this pledge that Vajrasattva made was such that he instantly purifies the greatest negative actions and downfalls, even those that are extremely difficult to purify. So the greatest negative actions and downfalls, like the grave negative actions of denigrating one's guru, which is said to result in the karmic experience of having one's tongue stretched out, staked down to the ground, and then being run over by a plough hundreds of times. Even those kinds of grave and negative deeds are purified by practicing Vajrasattva, and that's the result of his powerful aspiration. So you can think it's like a really powerful medicine, like the most powerful medicine that can cure even cancer. So likewise, just as you need really powerful medicine to cure cancer, say, like chemotherapy for cancer, likewise for Vajrayana transgressions, tantric transgressions, then the chemotherapy equivalent is Vajrasattva practice. His very essence, his mantra, is known as the 100 syllables of the Tathagatas. The essence of all the 100 deities, 42 peaceful, 58 wrathful, are contained in the 100 syllable mantra of the Tathagatas Vajrasattva's mantra. By changing a few of the names, a few of the syllables of this 100 syllable mantra, it becomes this 100 syllables of infinite deities, such as the Huruka mantra. So actually it seems you need to, instead of saying Vajrasattva in the mantra, it seems like we need to say Heruka Sattva, and then it becomes the 100 syllables infinite deities, the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities, or infinite peaceful and wrathful deities. In any case, the text continues, Vajrasattva is therefore praised in numerous tantras and transmissional texts as the great all-pervading lord of all the Buddha families, both with regard to the deities and with regard to the mantras. This then is the power of support to visualize the teacher Vajrasattva truly present, to take refuge in him with one pointed respect. So, for those who have transgressed the samaya, who are burdened by negative actions, negative karma, and obscurations, then this is the support that they should take. The power of support, visualizing their Guru Vajrasattva present above their heads, above the crown of their heads. Then, in his presence, to take refuge in him with one repointed respect or devotion, and to never forsaking bodhicitta, to reflect on the meaning of the mantra. So, one must never forsake bodhicitta. While engaging in this practice of Vajrasattva, one must maintain one's bodhicitta, right? So if with the basis of bodhicitta one then engages in this practice of Vajrasattva, visualizing Vajrasattva as the support, and with the power of regret, applying the power of action as an antidote, reciting Vajrasattva's mantra and so on, then bodhicitta itself is an incredible, powerful purifier, right? Just giving rise to bodhicitta purifies our misdeeds and obscurations, as we described, as we talked about earlier. And there are so many scriptural quotations explaining, stating exactly that, the power of bodhicitta to purify misdeeds and obscurations. But with the basis of bodhicitta, if in addition to that we then embrace this practice of Vajrasattva, the skillful tantric means of deity, mantra and mudra, and practice in this way, then the process of purification will be even more swift, even more powerful. And to this end, Rinpoche quoted some lines from the Guhyagaba Tantra that describe the efficacy or the potency of the tantric skillful means of deity, mantra and mudra. Then we come to an explanation of the meaning of the 100-syllable mantra. The mantra is a prayer evoking Vajrasattva's promise. Here are the words with their equivalent meanings. Om, most highly praise. Om actually embodies all three kayas, or all together. So each of these expressions of Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya and Manakaya, so all together Om embodies the three kayas, embodies all Buddhis. So the syllable A said to be the source of all. A is the source of all, it is the supreme of all letters. If you take any letter, any sound, it is pervaded by the sound A, it's pervaded by the letter A. So in this way, if you take away the sound or the letter A, or the sound A, then what are you left with? Nothing. You cannot. There's all letters, all sounds, all syllables will disappear. So A is the source of all. Therefore, it's the supreme of all letters. The tantras teach like this. So from A, this single letter arise so many different sounds, so many different letters, syllables. So likewise from emptiness, emptiness pervades everything, right? It is the basic nature of everything, just like the syllable A pervades all sounds and syllables. So emptiness pervades everything, but from emptiness comes a manifold of different appearances. It's not just one thing that appears from emptiness, right? But endlessly different things, appearances, inventions, houses, planes, cars, different types of landscape, earth, and so on and so forth. So many different types of material, matter, atoms, and which all combined together in different ways can create so many different things, right? This is after all how scientists make the different things they make. But all of this comes from emptiness, right? Whatever arises from emptiness. Whatever arises from emptiness, from self-arisen primordial wisdom, from natural awareness. So, there's some Hindus who say, all Buddhists are Hindus, really. They said, you Buddhists have Om in all your mantras, like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Ahum Vajraguru, and so on. So it said you are all just like Om Shiva and so on, our Hindu mantras. You also have Om, so actually Buddhists are really Hindus. And I said to him, kind of teasing me, I said, well, actually our teachings go much deeper than Om. From Om we arrive at which is the source of all, as the supreme of all letters, as the origin of all emanations, all occurrences. To this end, she's quoting different lines from reciting the names of Manjushri, the Guyagaba Tantra, and so on. Anyway, I was just teasing him, but so just reading through the explanation of the mantra on page 205. Pala, so Anupalaya, third line. Pala means nurture or guard. So guard it closely, O Vajrasattva. May you remain firmly with me. So Tenu, I think, means you. Pa is a grammatical particle. Tishta is firmly. Tishta is remain, be seated.
Sarva karma suzame, sarvani tamjere, karmani lere, suzame sent karma suzame sena tamje semere, yang takba sensor. Chitam shiriyam kuruhung zata, chitam sena ningre, semre, chita second to do ningla core, to do semla core. Shiri Nepal.
So we're reading through this translation of the mantra. She is reading through each word. So we have ha ha ha, which indicates the four boundless attitudes, the four immeasurables of love and so on, the four empowerments of the vast empowerment and so on, the four joys of joy, great joy and so on, the four bodies, the namanakaya and so on. Ho, a laugh of pleasure at those. Bhagavan means the victorious one, namely the Buddha. This is an epithet for the Buddha, the enlightened one. You are the diamond, do not forsake me. Make me a diamond holder, make me a vajra holder. O great being of the commitment, may I be inseparably united with you. Maha means all, Samaya means sacred commitment, Sattva is being, pure being. And there's so much meaning to right? So for that one needs to look at the Guyagaba Tantra and reciting the names of Manjushri, these tantras. The 6th chapter of the Guyagaba, or the 7th, which talk about the meaning of and likewise reciting the names of Manjushri Tantra. Speaks of the meaning of the syllable this primordial syllable So I mentioned these sources for the benefit of those who are engaged in scriptural study. The scholars up here, of course, many of the scholars here may well be, probably are. No doubt there are some here who are much more learned than me. But it's possible there are some who are less learned. So for their sake, I'm mentioning these texts where they can learn more about these things, thinking it might be of benefit to them. So the power of action as an antidote. So in the Chinese in Chinese culture, they talk about acknowledging one's mistakes. So acknowledging one's mistakes is involved here, so is part of the four powers. In acknowledging one's mistakes, by acknowledging the error of one's ways, we give rise to regret, right? So that plays a part here as well. So the power of action is an antidote. We read quickly through those lines. Then the power of regret. Finally, the power of restoration or resolution. This is the firm resolution to refrain from negative actions in the future, even if one's life is at stake. These last two powers are complete when at the end of reciting the mantra one verbalizes one's parting or one's confession in verse or as prose with such as prayers as in ignorance and confusion. So these are referred to lines of liturgy that we chant at the end of the mantra recitation. And again, the power of regret, or rather a mind of regret, feeling regret, refers to this sense of disgust, complete disgust and disenchantment with the non-virtue one's performed, the mistakes one's made. So most of you here, many of you will have received many empowerments, many transmissions from Chushit Rinpoche, Yangtan Rinpoche, recently from Sakya Koma. Hundreds of empowerments. We have already received these empowerments, so many empowerments, and by receiving those empowerments we have made sacred commitments, namely Samaya. So we need to honor these sacred commitments. We need to maintain our Samaya. If we fail to maintain our Samaya, then we will reap the results. We will reap very grave, negative, frightening results. If our Samaya transgressions will be our downfall in this and future lives. At the same time, if we honor our sacred commitments and maintain our Samayas just by virtue of maintaining those commitments, we will traverse the path, we will make great strides of progress along the path and swiftly find ourselves at the state of enlightenment. So such is the power of Samaya. And how to purify our Samaya transgressions? Well, the best method for this is this Vajrasattva practice of Vajrasattva meditation and recitation. So as a practitioner, we should recite at least several 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras. So you complete 100,000 when doing the Ngondro, each time you do the Ngondro. But you should aim to do much more than that, actually, throughout your life. So as one Jimmy Gyawa Nyugu would tell his students, command his students to accumulate many hundreds of thousands of Vajrasattva mantra. He would say at least 100,000, if not 100,000. So his students, Jimmy Gyawa Nyugu's students, were renowned for having accumulated many tens of hundreds of thousands of Vajrasattva mantra. Some of them had accumulated 100, meaning 10 million Vajrasattva mantras. So this is so especially important. Purifying our Samaya transgressions with the Vajrasattva mantra is so important, especially for those of us who received empowerment, which is to say all of us. Kimadaza Rinpoche would talk about this. He would scold us. He'd say, these days, you will go and receive hundreds of empowerments. But once you finish the empowerment, he said everyone rushes over to receive empowerments, and the days go by. You receive days and weeks and months of empowerments, like the whole Rinjin Tezo, which takes 2 or more months. But then you even hear of people who, at the end of, say, 2 months of empowerments, they've received everything. Their stomach is full of long life pills and Amrita and blessings, but they're not even clear who the master is, from whom they've received the empowerments. There are stories like this. He's telling a lot of jokes and anecdotes about how the Ngari people. I think one of Rinpoche's teachers would, because Rinpoche is partly from Ngari, partly from Ngari, which is a northern area of Tibet. And one of his teachers would tell funny stories about the people of Ngari, basically saying that they were cowards, compared to those in eastern Tibet. And Ken Rinpoche anyway, and Rinpoche would say, I would say then, oh, but what about Degyo Rinpoche? Or someone would say in defense of the Ngari people, what about Degyo Rinpoche, who spent many years in Ngari? And then he would say, well, Degyo Rinpoche wasn't from Ngari, he was from Serta, which in Kham, in East Tibet. He just stayed in Ngari for a long time. And then, we'd mention another Lama, another very famous Lama, I didn't catch the name. And then he'd say, yeah, he was a great master, and he was from Ngari, actually born and bred from Ngari, but he's just like one of those rare flowers that grows from a pile of shit. Anyway, this is just a lot of jokes, and I never managed to kind of, to find a fit response to defend the Ngari people. Anyway, so all just some jokes. The point is that having received empowerment, we have received samaya, and we need to maintain and honor those samayas. And also we should understand, if we perform any one of the non-virtues, we are damaging our samaya. So the 10 non-virtues, are also samaya transgressions. So every time you perform any non-virtuous action, you are transgressing the samayas of body, samayas of speech, samayas of mind. If you disturb the mind of your guru, if you transgress your guru's instructions, if you go against their command, if you agitate your guru in any way, you are transgressing your samayas. So essentially it all comes, you could condense all the samayas into the samayas of Guru's body, speech and mind, and that which includes displeasing one of the samayas of the Guru's mind, involves not displeasing the Guru in any way. So to purify and amend all of these samaya transgressions, all of these misdeeds, then we apply ourselves to this practice of Vajrasattva, visualizing him as explained, reciting the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva as explained. Because as it says here, there is not one of us who has not entered the door of the secret mantra vehicle by means of empowerment, as we were just discussing. And once we've done so, if we do not subsequently keep the commitments, the samayas we've obtained through empowerment, we will go to hell. If we do keep them, we will attain Buddhahood. So again, we spoke of the potential profit, so to speak, of keeping the samayas, and the potential loss. There's no other destination than these two. If you maintain your samayas, you will, just by virtue of that, you will progress. If you damage your samayas, just by virtue of that, you will be destroyed. The commitments are very subtle, numerous, and difficult to keep, so we were also speaking about this. So the samaya commitments are very numerous. They include everything from the non-virtues up. They're subtle and difficult to keep, so it's almost in a sense we cannot avoid transgressing our samaya. this makes it all the more important, to confess our transgressions and to recite the Vajrasattva mantra on a daily basis. And I do this on a daily basis. I practice Vajrasattva, recite a mala of Vajrasattva mantras every day. It's not that I think I'm going to, I think she said it's not that I'm confident that I'm going to really progress or attain enlightenment by virtue of that. And I've also done Vajrasattva practice in retreat, but I do some Vajra practice every day without fail. At least I'm confident, though, that at least through doing that I can purify the samaya transgressions and at least not let those transgressions accumulate. So we should therefore do the practice of Vajrasattva every day and recite the 100 syllables at least 21 times, at the very least 21 times a day. By doing so, our downfalls will be blessed and the fully ripened effect will be prevented from growing greater. So what I just said relates to this. By reciting the 100 syllable mantra 100,000 times, all our downfalls will be eradicated. Vajrasattva, deity Vajrasattva, embodies all other deities. He's the Lord of the Mandala, embodying all other deities. And thereby it's taught that the masters, the many great masters have taught that just by virtue of practicing Vajrasattva, you can fulfill all of your commitments to practice other deities. So if you've received great cycles of empowerments like the Rinchen Terza and so on, you will have received empowerments for many different deities and actually have a commitment to practice those deities. But how to maintain that commitment, how to, practice so many deities on a daily, regular basis? Well, the great masters have said that just by practicing Vajrasattva on a daily basis, because Vajrasattva embodies all Buddhas, all deities, then in that way you can fulfill your commitment for as many deities as you have a commitment for. So, clearly visualize Vajrasattva and so on. This quotation from one of the sutras: even if for your own part you've managed to keep faultless commitments, there are others who may have broken the root commitments. And by mixing with them, you will get the faults of transgression by association and of incidental transgression. As the Tantra says, so the inexpressible confessor Yeshu Kundra says, I've kept the company of transgressors, fulfilled their wishes, and so on. So, just by contact with others who have broken their vows, you are contaminated. You, as it says here, you accrue the fault of transgression by association. So this means that also teachers, when teachers grant tantric teachings to disciples, they form a samaya, right? A samaya is formed. And if those students fail to keep their samaya purely, then their samaya transgressions affect the teacher. Just as it says, one drop of sour milk turns all the milk sour. So this is a student or Vajra siblings or another practitioner's transgressions can contaminate us and affect us. So one degenerate practitioner spoils all the other practitioners. So, like here we have such a great gathering, a large gathering of people. Who has pure samaya, who doesn't? It's really, we cannot tell, we cannot say. And in recent years I've given teachings like the 7 treasuries, and many masters have given these transmissions and other transmissions, Nyingti Yapshi and so on and so forth, to great large groups of students. So when those students don't maintain their samaya, then their transgressions indirectly affect the teachers. Breaches of mantra veil commitments are easy to purify. We part from them properly. And again, part here means, more commonly we would say confess, if we part from them by means of confession. The teachings say that if a single root downfall of the vows of individual liberation occurs and is concealed, if it's concealed and not openly confessed, it's impossible to repair, like a shattered earthen pot. Root downfalls of the bodhisattva vow, like broken objects made of precious metal, they can be repaired with the help of someone else, namely a spiritual friend. Faults and downfalls in the secret mantra vehicle are like slight dents in a precious metal object, like a golden pot. If it gets dented, you can hammer the dent out. One can completely purify them oneself, using the deity mantra and concentration as supports. This is the quality of the secret mantra samayas. As long as one passes through them, confesses that immediately they're easy to purify, but the longer one waits, the more the faults grow, and the harder it becomes to part from it. After 3 years, they cannot be purified, even if one attempts to part from them. So the longer you conceal and fail to confess your samaya, then the more grave they become. And in the tantras, in texts like the treatise on the 3 vows, it explains the different durations of samaya transgressions, the different types of samaya transgression. A transgression, a downfall, a tear. There are specific terms describing the different types of transgression and their gravity according to their time, according to their duration, and in connection then the way that they are to be confessed and purified is explained, like the degree of offering and sacrifice one must make in order to purify different degrees of samaya transgression. So, those of you who have done formal study, scriptural study, you'll be familiar with these points. But being familiar with these points isn't enough. The whole point of study is to become familiar with these points, with these details and distinctions, so that you actually put them into practice, so that you can observe the samayas correctly, so that you can purify more effectively, right? Observe the samayas more effectively, so that knowledge is meant to serve a purpose. All of one's knowledge is meant to serve a purpose. That's the whole point of scriptural study. Otherwise, just accumulating lots of knowledge, impressive knowledge, and not applying it yourself. Well, there's no point in that. And again, in this regard, it's so important that students have reverence not only for their teachers, but for their teachers' teachers. Where did their teacher's teaching come from? From their teacher, and so on and so forth. So it's not enough just to have faith and respect for your own teacher. You need to have respect also for the previous generation of teachers, from the source, for the origin, for the entire lineage. And in this way, when it comes to the lineages and the great seats of learning, like the great monasteries that are the kind of beacons of the pillars of their tradition, there will be like certain specific lineage holders or specific positions, right? The abbots and heads of those monasteries. And the way it works, a lot of these monasteries is that you'll have, say, one guru who then has a main student, who then becomes their successor, and then the reincarnation of their guru will become their student, right? So the reincarnation of the guru becomes this student's student, and then that student, when they are reborn, they again become the student of their guru's reincarnation, and so on and so forth. This is how it goes. So there's a lot of kind of cultural, there's a lot of context here that I'm not able to translate at speed, but there's a discussion these days about the Trugal system, the validity and worth of the Trugal system, whether it's really appropriate in this 21st century, whether it should be continued or discontinued. The Trugal system, like any system, is not perfect. By all means, it is not perfect and beyond fault, beyond complication. But if you were to think about the consequences of destroying the Chugo system, discontinuing it. Well, the consequences would be quite grave. But it has become problematic these days because in the past there were very few Tugos who were identified, those who were given the name of Tugu, reincarnation, they were identified very carefully. They were very few and far between, and they were really, for the most part, very special holy beings who really could not be replaced by ordinary people. They could, just another average person, no matter how well educated or what capable, just could not kind of equal or compete with these holy beings. But these days, then the Tugu system's kind of been taken to an extreme, and you find like the number of Tugus has grown like exponentially in the last few decades. You have like people are recognizing their own children as Tugus, or like manipulating things so that their children recognize as Tugus just for personal gain and mundane reasons, right? And anyway, this is happening in many places, in many contexts, and this is a total distortion of the Tugu system. Anyway, in short, I guess we could say that there's a lot to be said about the Tugu system and to be discussed, but it's quite a complex situation. So, as long as one parts from or confesses them immediately, they are easy to purify. Some are transgressions, but the longer one waits, the more the fault grows. Okay, so now the benefits of purification. So actually these days, another note on the Tugu system, if you look these days at the number of people being recognized as Tugus, it's grown to such an extremely high number. It's almost the title Tugu has like lost its value because there are just so many people being recognized as Tugu for all sorts of distorted reasonings, like I said. So that on the one hand, and if we look also at the behavior of a lot of these so-called Tugus, people with the Daido Tugu, the kind of very questionable behavior of a lot of these people, then just as Rimshe se Kempo Sodage or Sudrim Lodra, I think Rimshe said Kempo Sudrim Lodra says, just as Kempo Sudrim Lodra is suggesting, then when you look at it from that perspective, then it does seem to be very good reasons for discontinuing the Tugu system. It seems like from that perspective, in some ways it's doing more harm than good. And then I think Rinpoche said, okay, anyway, that was in short about these issues around the Tugu system. Now the benefits of purification. This meditation and recitation is the internal cleansing method of the unsurpassable secret mantra vehicle. So it's entirely appropriate to apply it at the beginning of all one's sessions. One should recite the mantra without distraction and without adulterating the recitation with ordinary speech. So one should not chant the mantra and chant a few mantras and then break into ordinary speech and then go back to one's mantra recitation and so on. One's mantra recitation practice needs to be completely free of ordinary chatter, unbroken, undisturbed by ordinary chatter. If we interrupt our mantra recitation with ordinary chatter or with any other talk, then that that really damages the power of our mantra recitation. It's a bit like if you're fermenting something, you're fermenting grains, you need to put the yeast in and then make sure everything is sterile, then put the yeast in, then cover the pot, right? Seal the cover so that nothing else can get in, right? Only then will the liquid ferment and become powerful. So it's similar, we could say, with mantra recitation. It's a process of like fermentation, we could say. And And just like if you then take the lid off a fermenting pot and you put something else in it, then that's going to ruin the process and the fermentation won't happen right. Likewise with ordinary chatter. Your mantra recitation will not be powerful and effective if you interrupt it with ordinary chatter. So reading through the quotation on page 208. At their death, someone who practices like this, there's no doubt they'll become chief of all the Sugata's heirs. The boundless benefits of this practice are also described in numerous texts, among them the Tantra of the 3 verses and the wisdom mind. Those who meditate on Vajrasattva and recite the mantra perfectly will purify all their negative actions and become the same as Vajrasattva. So just as Guru Rinpoche said about the Vajraguru mantra, those who chant a certain amount will be freed from the lower realms. Those who chant a certain amount will be free from samsara. Those who chant a certain amount will become inseparable with me. Likewise, those who meditate on Vajrasattva and recite a certain amount of the mantra perfectly, they'll become inseparable with Vajrasattva. Then more explanation of the benefits of reciting the Vajrasattva mantra in the Tantra, the Song of Vajrasattva. Those who hold the 100 syllables and want a child, they have a child. But similar thing is said about praying to Tara, right? In the benefits of the reciting the homage to the 21 Taras. It says those who wish for children, or those who wish for a son, will get a son or will get a child, and it really works actually. If you pray to Tara, those who are longing for a child, they pray to Tara, they will conceive. If you wish to prolong your life, you should hold the 100 syllables, and so on. In this life, you will be happy. At death, you'll go to the blissful realm. A few days after Kimbodazo Rinpoche passed away, I had a strange dream of him. I had a dream of Kimbodazo Rinpoche where he handed me a letter stating in verse that Rinpoche read the lines stating that I am in the realm of Buddha Akshopa. And in the dream, then Ken Rinpoche was being approached by a big, like a line of hundreds of people all lining up with offerings to pay homage to him, to pay respect to him. And I thought perhaps it was just attachment to my teacher, but I thought how wonderful my teacher is being so honored, has become so famous and being so honored by people. And he had handed me a thick pad of parchment, of paper, and I looked down and read the first few lines. Which in short said, anyway, in short they said I have reached the pure realm of Buddha Akshobhya. So this is the result of practice, right? And indeed, when Kimbodazo Rinpoche was alive, signs of accomplishment would appear when extraordinary signs of accomplishment appeared when he did practice. Rinpoche mentioned some of those signs. Okay, so in the lines that I read in this parchment in my dream, they said something like I'm in the realm of Buddha Akshobhya. I am residing here. Whether you believe it or not, well, that depends on you. Something like that. Rinpoche recited these lines by heart. I'm just starting to translate them in full. And the moment I woke up from this dream, these lines already imprinted themselves on my mind. The moment I woke up from the dream, I wrote them down. So, as it says here, at death you'll go to the blissful realm. This is the Buddha field of Amitabha, and all the Buddhas have their 5 Buddhas and so on have their specific Buddha realm, pure realm. So Kimmodaze Rinpoche, well, and I'm confident that just as he said, he is residing in the pure realm of Buddha Akshobhya. Finally, they will devote themselves to liberation and attain Buddhahood. So this means by practicing like this, reciting the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, one will eventually reach Buddhahood. Now we dedicate the merit and stop here for today.